Hey everyone, Jason here, digital marketing consultant, and in this Google Ads Fast Track Guide for Beginners, you're going to learn how to set up your next Google Search PPC campaign in record time. Make sure you check out the timestamp table of contents in the description, along with a deep dive video if you're looking for a comprehensive review and tutorial for Google Ads. Here, we're going to be quick and dirty setting up your next lead generation campaign. Timestamp table of contents to skip around. Let's go ahead and dive into my screen. So I'm going to assume that you already have a Google Ads account set up. If you don't, you can just Google search Google AdWords, even though it's called Google Ads now on Google, and you'll be able to go through a couple of quick steps, give them your credit card, and you'll be able to set up your account. So once you're inside of your account, you'll be taken to Overview, and you actually want to come over and click on Campaigns, and then click on this big blue plus button to create your new campaign. And here we're just going to not let them tell us what to do. I know you've probably seen a lot of other tutorials where they like clicking on these to kind of shortcut the process, but generally I like having 100% control over my campaigns because I don't want Google to waste my money. So the next thing you want to do is click on search, because that's what we're going to be doing here, is make sure your ads just show up on the search results page. You can check out the channel for other tutorials on things like display and video. Here, what do we want this campaign to do? And you don't actually have to click any of these boxes, so we can just go ahead and click continue. We'll give our campaign a name. Make sure it's something short and descriptive so you can easily keep track of your campaigns. And also you're going to make a lot of campaigns. So the longer the name, the longer and harder it's going to be to figure out which campaign's which. So I like just using little codes. Uncheck display. You never want display and search in the same campaign, ever. So next, we can click on Show More Settings, and I highly recommend setting an end date. So if you're going to be running whatever your budget is, let's say we're just going to do $5 a day, we probably don't want it to run for more than 2 weeks before we actually go check in. And the reason that you want to set an end date is simply because Google will keep spending your money, like forever. So if you wind up in the hospital, you forget about it, somebody else is managing it, and they forget about it, just set an end date. It's better to go to your Google Ads account and go, oh no, the traffic was turned off, versus, oh no, the traffic was on and now I owe Google $2,000, or those numbers can get a lot higher. So we'll go ahead and make sure it ends in a couple of weeks here. And then for campaign and dynamic search ads, you'll actually just go ahead and leave those alone. Dynamic search ads is this fancy thing that Google's experimenting with, but you never want to allow Google to experiment with your money. So here, the next option we have is locations. And so for locations, this is going to depend upon where your business is physically located. So if you have a physical business address, then what you want to do is target the local zip codes, local neighborhoods, and then your state or territory. If you are shipping across an entire country, or you're doing business across an entire country, then you want to target the country that you're targeting and then all the states and territories inside of that country. If you're targeting multiple countries, then just list out the countries. So you only want to ever go too deep unless you're just doing kind of like a worldwide thing. Then just list out your countries, and you create separate campaigns in the future for the individual countries, getting a little more detailed. So for languages, I typically just leave this alone because based upon our experiments, we find that the country location targeting does a good enough job of making sure we're targeting the right people. And then for audiences, you'll actually leave that alone because we're not going to use audiences for our targeting. And then budget, we'll go ahead and set our budget to $5 a day. And of course, Google's giving us a little warning saying, hey, you should give us more money, right? Always take it with a grain of salt when Google tells you to give you more money, because you have to remember that the more you spend, the more they make. They don't necessarily make money when your campaigns are successful. $5 a day is plenty. We're going to leave our delivery method standard, and bidding. We really want to make sure they keep doing this across lots of campaigns, not conversions, clicks. Look, conversions works really well if you're okay essentially saying, hey, Google, here's my money, and do your little black box thing and get conversions on my site. I never recommend to any new person who's driving traffic to their site for the first time using conversions, because you don't know what your conversions are, and you're much more likely going to be able to find a profitable campaign manually versus what Google does, because Google's going to have to spend a lot more money than you managing it manually to get the same result. Now, if you're already driving traffic, you already know a page works because you've been doing something on a different platform, then by all means, you can try a campaign starting out with conversions. But if you're new to this, if you don't already have a bunch of conversions, don't use conversions. You're just going to burn your cash very, very fast. So for maximum cost per click, I'm going to set it to $2, and this is just going to depend upon your niche or your country. So for example, lawyers have to pay upwards of $30 to $50 per click, whereas chip repair is probably closer to $5 to $10 per click. But within a couple of days, Google will start actually telling you what you need to be bidding to get to at least the first page, if not the first position. So you can always start low and raise your bid from there. So under more settings, you have 2 additional options inside of your campaign. Ad schedule, if you're a physical-based business and you have business hours or you're taking phone calls, then you can go ahead and actually make sure that the ads only show up when you can actually take the call. Now for ad rotation, this is going to be something that's dependent upon how much time and energy you're willing to spend. Now personally, because I am a geek and a little bit of a nerd when it comes to this stuff, I always click on do not optimize. Yes, lower performing ads will continue to run, but essentially what do not optimize means is when we create our 3 to 5 ads, Google is automatically going to give each ad the exact same amount of traffic. Now what optimize does is this is going to be, if you're not going to be checking up on your campaigns every other day, then just leave it at optimize, and Google will essentially try and figure out which ad is the best performing for you and then drive more traffic to it. The reason that I typically don't recommend doing this though is because almost every time we do this, we find that Google does not give all the ads an equal chance. So we'll see one ad gets, 100 or 200 clicks, and the other ads only got 50 impressions before they decided this one was the best. So it's a little bit of a black box, but if you're not going to be super hands-on, then you can just leave it at optimize. Now, ad extensions is something you can come back to later. I'm not going to go over it in this particular fast track, but it is worth looking at. So that's all there is to it to setting up the campaign. So we'll go ahead and click save and continue. So now that we've created our campaign, we're ready to start putting together our ad group. So taking a look at this diagram, you can see at the very top at the campaign level, that's what we just put together. When you're putting together a campaign, typically you want to be thinking about one product or one service, one offer, one particular type of person that you're targeting. And this is of course where we set up all of our location, our budget, and our bid strategy. And now we're at the ad group level, and this is where we're going to tell Google who we want to target. So because we're doing a search campaign, these are ads that are showing up when someone's typing something in. So we want to tell Google, hey, when someone types this in, this is what we want to show up for. Now, Google has something called Keyword Planner. I'll link up to a full-blown tutorial on how to use it in the description, but you don't need to do that right now. You can go ahead and take a look at this diagram, and these are all of the keywords you need to use to get started. Simply fill in the blanks with whatever your product or service is, and go ahead and create 3 to 5 campaigns based upon these keywords. So in this particular example, I'd go ahead and name our ad group Best, and I'll call it PPC Agency. And then I'll go ahead and use a bunch of keywords: best PPC agency, best management company, PPC agency, ads professional, ads manager, ads company. So if I'm doing this locally, where I am right now is Seattle, Washington in the US, then in locations, I would make sure that I was only targeting Seattle and the outlying neighborhood zip codes and areas, and making sure that I wasn't targeting anything outside of the state of Washington. And so in this particular instance, what we do here is, even though these are super basic, we can use something called match types to actually tell Google that we want to be more specific with our keywords. So when you just type them in like this is called a broad match. And this means any combination of the keyword, Google is going to serve your ad to. And these typically are the ones that are going to get you the lowest quality leads or people to your site. We're jump cutting ahead here. You put parentheses, and this is a phrase match. So someone has to actually type in best Google Ads company in some combination in order for the keyword to show up. And then finally, we have something called exact match. And these can wind up being the most expensive, but they can also wind up being the most profitable. And these you put brackets around. So the reason that you only need to find 3 to 7 keywords per ad group is because these are quickly going to multiply, because you're going to have broad match, then you're going to have phrase match, and then you're going to have exact match. And you're going to want to do this for at least 3 to 5 ad groups. Now, to make another ad group, all you'd have to do is click on this plus button, and maybe this is going to be our location-based searches. So all we would want to do is take all of these keywords and then go ahead and add our city after it. So in this particular instance, we're doing Seattle. So I would just type in Seattle and then copy and paste it across every single keyword here. So I'll jump cut ahead to that being done. And just like that, we've added Seattle to the end of all of these phrases. So we'd go ahead and create 2 or 3 other ad groups using some other combination of this particular diagram showing you the different types of keywords that you could come up with. And this is really as complicated as you need to be when you're just starting. Again, we're only spending $5 a day. We're setting the maximum of $2 per click. And after a couple days or a week, you're going to have all the data you need to start getting really granular and really detailed. And this is actually something called the search terms report. So here's a little screenshot of it. And this is where all of the phrases that your ads actually showed up for are listed. So Google will tell you exactly what keywords you should and should not be going after. Now, for time purposes, I'm just going to call these 2 good, and I'll go ahead and click save and continue. And now we get to create our ads. And when it comes to creating our ads, we have the option of 3 headlines, 30 characters each. Then we have 2 descriptions at 90 characters each, and then our display 1 and 2 path that represent the display URL. So your final URL and your display URL don't necessarily have to be the exact same. So if you have a really long URL with a bunch of stuff after it, you can essentially chop it down so it just shows your main domain and then path 1 and 2. Something that's really great here is you can do things like have scarcity style words in your URL. So you can see in the preview here, you could say discount, act now, limited time, 50% discount. So this is something where you can actually use this real estate to your advantage to help your ad stand out. Now, when it comes to actually writing your ad, this is going to be the hardest part of the process. So what I recommend doing is taking a couple of your keywords, going into an incognito mode in Google or private browsing in Firefox, and just search your keywords to see what ads pop up. And there are a couple of elements that you want to look for in the other competitors' ads that you might want to add to yours. So let's quickly go through what to look for. Now, typing in one of our keywords, PPC Management Agency, you see we have 4 search results. There will be some keywords that don't give you any ads, so you might have to try a couple times in order to get some ads served to you. The first thing we want to look at is results. What are these ads saying they can do for our ideal customer? So our customer is someone who's looking to have their Google ads managed. So the results they talk about here, ROI driven, ROI focused. Apparently ROI is really important to that top ad. And then you see in number 2, they also talk about ROI. And the last 2, business grow your business. So all of these are talking about either return on ad spend or growing people's businesses. So it would probably be a good idea to say something like that in our ad copy. The next we want to look at for is roadblocks. So ways that they are handling typical objections that people might have of doing business with them. In this particular instance, we can see ads 1 and 4 both talk about transparency. And then number 1 talks about having a dedicated account manager and certified PPC experts. So this tells me 2 things. Number 1, it lets me know that a common objection might be people feeling like every time they call into an agency, they're talking to a different person. So letting people know that, hey, no, you have one person who's working on your account and working with you to grow your business might be a common issue that a lot of potential customers have. Next, we look and we see no contracts. And in number 2, no hassle flat fees lets me know that probably trying to offer a 3 to 6 month contract might not be the best solution for a potential customer based upon what I'm seeing in these ads. And then we just want to look for some other common elements, which in this particular instance, ads number 1 and 3 are talking about having a free consultation or free review. And then we can look for social proof to see if there's anything in people's ads that backs up the claims they're making in their ad or adds to their credibility. So based upon all this information, we might come up with an ad that says something like this: honest PPC management, first month free, actfunnel.com/free management. If you don't get more leads or sales, you pay nothing. Work with a manager who actually cares about you and your business. And then if we're doing something called site links, which we won't get to in this fast track, we would say Google partner, ROI driven, contract free, and account ownership. And all of those site links would be handling objections. And the first one would just be a little bit of credibility because the Google partner badge actually has to be earned. Now we'll take all this information and go ahead and paste it into Google Ads to make our first search ad. So as you can see here, we've gone ahead and pasted everything in. And over here on the right-hand side, you can go ahead and preview. This is most likely what your ad is going to look like. They say they're experimenting with headline 3, but I rarely see ads that actually have the third headline. So you can kind of just use that third headline as extra space, but don't count on it actually showing up when you're putting together your search ads. And you would just make multiple variations of your ads. You want 3 to 5 ads to start. But really, if you're doing $5 a day, 2 to 3 ads is pretty much all you're going to need, because that $5 a day budget is going to be stretched pretty thin. Now, in this particular instance, I'm actually not going to go ahead and create a new ad because I want to show you how to create ads after you've gone through this account setup process. So I'm going to click done. And then it's going to ask me if I want to make another ad for the other ad group. The answer is no. You'll only need to make your ads once. And I'm going to go ahead and click cancel there and click save and continue. So I've only made one ad for one of the ad groups that we set up. Now our campaign is ready to go. So I'm going to click continue to campaign, and I'm going to move the ad that I made from the first ad group over to the second ad group. So we'll click on our first ad group here, best PPC. You'll see we have all of our keywords. Now, when you go ahead and do this, you probably won't see instantly approved. You can see the campaign is pending, and that's because we have a start date that's a little further out than when we're doing this recording. And then you'll also have to wait for your ads to be approved. So if we go to ads and extensions here, you'll see that we have a search ad ready to go. That's the one that we just made. So we'll go ahead and copy that, Command C on a Mac, Control V on a Windows, and then we'll go up to our campaign level, go to ad groups, and then click on our second ad group. It will take us to the keywords, click on ads and extensions, and then go ahead and paste that ad in and paste. So now we're going to be able to actually have both these ads, the same ad, in both ad groups. So one of the things that you can do is to go ahead and create at least 1 or 2 more ads. So really, I said 3 to 5 ads total max, but if you're doing actually $5 a day for this particular campaign, you only need 2 or 3 ads because your impressions are going to be very, very low while you try and figure out which one of those keywords is actually going to be the most valuable. Now, before we go into the search terms report, you'll see that you can make a text ad or a responsive search ad. If you're new to Google, I don't recommend doing the responsive search ad because it's new. As of the time of this recording, if you're watching, a year or 2 later, then maybe they've figured it out. But typically what we do is we only have one test campaign where we try these new ads. But whenever you see something that's new, it just means you're signing up to be a guinea pig. It doesn't mean that it's actually going to perform better. In fact, if it's not standard, Google doesn't know if it's going to work better. So go ahead and just ignore the responsive search ads for your $5 a day campaign. If you have, 2 to 5% of your ad budget that you go, it's okay if I never see any return on that money ever again, then you can go ahead and try these, but let's go ahead and stick with what actually works. Now, to create a new ad, all you have to do is in add in sections, go ahead, add and extensions, go ahead and click on add text ad, and then you'll be able to go through the exact same process to create multiple ads, and you'll be able to copy and paste one ad you make from one ad group over to all of your other ad groups. So you want to make sure that you just, inside of your campaign, you have 2 or 3 ads and they're the same across all your ad groups when you're just starting. So now, before we call this good, let's go ahead and look at the search terms report, because this is where you're going to want to go once you've actually run some traffic. And to find your search terms report, you're going to go to the campaign that you're working on, you'll click on keywords, and then up here you'll see search terms. So you'll be able to click on search terms, and this will be a long laundry list of every single search phrase you actually showed up for. So this is a little creepy because you're going to see exactly what people are typing into Google. You'll get some really funny searches, and you can go ahead and either add those to your ad groups and say, oh, you know what, that's a really good idea. Or more importantly, you can go, I never want to show up for that keyword again. And you can go ahead and copy and paste it into your negative keywords list. Or you can actually just check the box and say, add this to my negative keywords list. And what your negative keywords are is your way of telling Google, I don't want to show up when someone searches something around this particular phrase. And that is all there is to it, to setting up your PPC campaigns for search for just $5 a day. Remember, there's a timestamp table of contents. If you need to go back through this video, skip around, and there's a link to a deeper dive video. Yes, you can get even more OCD and take a deeper look than what we just did here if you're looking to create some other types of search and display campaigns. So go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for more in-depth advertising tutorials and strategy videos just like this one. And until the next, keep building the business you love.